There is one power in the universe, and we can use it. Ernest Holmes. In one form or another, Ernest Holmes stated something similar often. There is one power in the universe, and we can use it. There is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. It was his deeply held belief, his philosophy, and his science. Over the course of the past few weeks, Reverend Margaret has been speaking on the theme from challenges to empowerment. Using Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, she has shared how the obstacles in life are not just meant to be avoided or overcome, but as Brenda said, embraced. Using 3 critical steps: correct perception, appropriate action, the right use of will, we can actually leverage and use those obstacles to our ultimate advantage. The book is pragmatic and offers very practical advice. If you've not had a chance to hear Reverend Margaret's talks on this, I invite you to look for them on YouTube and give them a listen. Links can also be found in our weekly email newsletter, so if you're not on the newsletter, let me know and I will have you added to the distribution. Reverend Margaret asked me for the title of my talk before her series even began. All I had was the theme for the month, from challenges to empowerment. So I decided to focus on the last word, empowerment. In reviewing the Science of Mind textbook in the sections I had underlined or noted or bookmarked or post-it noted, I was reminded of the section entitled, The Power at the Heart of God. Peace is the power at the heart of God. It is through the revelation of the self to the self that one understands life, that he approaches the power which is at the heart of God. This comes through a recognition of the unity of the individual with the Spirit back of, in, and through all. Peace is the power at the heart of God. In preparing for this talk, I delved into The Obstacle is the Way and learned the inspiration for the book was rooted in Stoicism and the Stoic philosophy of the Roman Empire as found in the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, to name a few. The author, Ryan Holiday, is a devoted student of this philosophy, and he uses it to build the framework for the book. With that in mind, I'm going to continue from where I left off in The Science of Mind. The problem of philosophy is to unite the infinite with the finite, to join the abstract with the concrete, to find a meeting place between the absolute and the relative, to unify with first cause. The same problem confronts religion and is indeed its whole purpose, to unify man with God. This is also true of science, but from a different angle. Science seeks to join causes with effects, and by so doing, makes practical use of its knowledge. Science is really spiritual, while philosophy leads to true religion. Science is the handmaid of religion and philosophy. Ernest Holmes is a product of his times and occasionally uses terminology that reflects that. While the term handmaid is not commonly used today, his meaning was science serves to assist both religion and philosophy. What I love so much about Science of Mind is that it doesn't ignore, disregard, or deny science. It's in the name. Religious science and science of mind. And on the book itself it reads, a philosophy, a faith, a way of life. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, was a lifelong student of science, religion, and philosophy. Even after he began his work lecturing, writing, and developing spiritual mind healing as a step-by-step method of practical application of these principles. In his excellent book, Open at the Top, The Life of Ernest Holmes, Neil Val writes, Holmes himself never stopped learning. He was constantly reading, exchanging ideas, and searching. He once said, anything that comes along that is better than I've got, I want to know about it. Building on the foundation Reverend Margaret has set over the course of the past few weeks, I plan to focus on the empowerment piece of the theme for the month, from challenges to empowerment. Correct perception, appropriate action, and the right use of will are all essential steps in responding rather than reacting to life's obstacles, difficulties, and challenges. However, let's be honest, it sounds much easier than it sometimes is. Even Ryan Holiday concedes it sounds simple, but it may not necessarily be easy. What I particularly liked about Ryan Holiday's book is he provides real-life examples to reveal the practical application of these steps. Demosthenes, Amelia Earhart, Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, Barack Obama, Arthur Ashe, Theodore Roosevelt, and James Stockdale, to name just a few, in this little tiny book. These are all inspiring and moving stories of incredible people of intense conviction. They all drew from a source deep within to overcome adversity, racial prejudice, insurmountable odds, political headwinds, capture and torture, destruction of personal property, sexism, injustice, speech impediments, physical limitations. The list goes on and on. You may be tempted to ask, what does it have to do with me? I'm not a president or pilot or general or athlete or inventor. I'm just a bank teller. I'm just a barista at a coffee shop. I'm just a retiree. I'm just a teacher. I'm just an artist. I'm just a musician. I'm just an accountant. I'm just a therapist. I'm just a reverend. I'm just a practitioner. Peace is the power at the heart of God. It is through the revelation of the self to the self that one understands life, that he approaches the power at the heart of God. This comes through recognition of the unity in the individual, with the Spirit back of, in, and through all. The same Spirit that was in Abraham Lincoln is in you. The same Spirit that is in you was in Amelia Earhart, Demosthenes, Arthur Ashe, and Thomas Edison. The time for self-deprecation is over. The time for believing our obstacles are insurmountable is over. The time for believing our problems aren't all that important is also over. Don't you believe it that your problems aren't important for 1 second, or aren't as important as someone else's? They are important. Don't let anybody tell you they aren't. These obstacles, difficulties, and challenges are here to help you grow, evolve, and thrive. What Brenda just shared with us is a perfect example of that. When well-meaning people tell you to just let it go, you can politely, gently, and graciously let their advice go. I speak from personal experience. My times of deepest disappointment, frustration, worry, and heartbreak were catalysts for even greater experiences, opportunities, and blessings. Yes, at times I needed some of those lessons to teach me I was being a selfish, narcissistic, you-know-what, stupid and ignorant. I also needed some of those difficulties to reveal I deserved better, much, much better than I was receiving. The question is, when we face these problems, are we going to Wally in the, Wally? Are we going to wallow? Are we going to go to Wally World?
Sorry, folks, park's closed.
Thank you, David. Are we going to wallow in the valley of despair, or summon our inner power and strength to realize the blessings? Sides of Mind stresses over and over how there is a power in the universe and we can use it. And if we change our thinking, we can change our lives. I want to share more from this text because it's just so rich. If we wish to come to Spirit for the healing of our wounds, let us come in peace and with spontaneous joy, for the Spirit is joy. Let us come with thanksgiving also, for a thankful heart is in harmony with life. But we must come in quiet confidence, with an open and receptive mind, a believing heart, naturally, sanely, and expectantly. In this way, we are entering the portals of reality, clad in garments of righteousness. We often think that what we require is money, friends, and physical healing. After these things do those who are outside the knowledge of the law seek, and they do well. For we need all these things, but they are the effects of right relationships to life. All people need some form of healing. Most people are unhappy, few have realization of any permanent peace. We seek fragments when the whole is at hand. How illogical to think that anything can rise higher than its source. The universe is a perfect, undivided whole, and healing can take place only when one is unified with it. How can anyone then be healed in part? Let us seek wholeness above all else. If we would come to the universal wholeness, we must approach it through the law of its own nature. This means that we must give our individual undivided attention to the spiritual unit back of things. Since all else is included within this unit, we find our particular good only through unity with life. This conscious unity makes our mind receptive to completion, since life itself is complete. The perception is always an inner light. Brenda, you touched on that too, your intuition, your gut. For the individual can use only such knowledge as he inwardly possesses. In reality, we know God or truth only as we ourselves embody God or truth. And this is in capital letters. And since it is impossible to embody anything outside ourselves, this knowledge must be an inner light. The truth itself is infinite, but we can only embody the infinite in degree. To the degree that we do embody reality, we become poised and powerful. In his book, The Art of Life, Ernest Holmes tells the story of when an English architect came to America to restore his health. When he came to visit one of Ernest Holmes' lectures, he was nearly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. This was a man who on the surface was very successful. He designed many beautiful buildings in London and was admired and respected. But deep inside, he was a mess and a wreck. Distraught, fearful, and as Ernest Holmes states it, almost insane, the man had just completed a very important and significant building in London and blamed all the hard work up until that point for all his troubles. Ernest Holmes wasn't so convinced, and using his method of spiritual mind healing, discovered during the telling of this man's story that he hated his older brother. Even though the man himself thought he had long forgiven and forgotten his grievance against his brother, the anger, hatred, bitterness, and resentment were all still in his subconscious. Not only were they destroying his health, but they were also starting to destroy his mentality. During the spiritual mind healing session, the truth was brought to the surface, and the man was eventually able to forgive his brother. He found an inner peace, and within a few weeks, he went on his way rejoicing. It wasn't instantaneous, and it's okay if it isn't. It may take time. This man in this case had to discover that he had hidden this rage against his brother, and eventually he was able to let it go. I'm going to share with you what Ernest Holmes wrote about this after. What power lies in conscious forgiving? Peace rises from the depths of one's being when confusion, hate, and resentment are dissolved. Hate is what this man surrendered. We never have to surrender anything that belongs to life. We surrender only that which is opposed to it. Take time frequently to become still in your thought and let the barriers of your personality slip away into space. Think of yourself as one with the whole. At first you will feel a sense of separation, then gradually there will come a sense of being merged with something bigger, something more universal. You will not be less yourself, you will be more, infinitely more yourself. Try to feel that there is no barrier between you and it. In those moments when you let go of all restriction, of all sense of limitation, consciously using your word for definite purposes, you will discover a hidden power of which you have never dreamed. Ernest Holmes follows up with another story with a man struggling with alcoholism. While visiting San Francisco to lecture, a man staying at the same hotel called for him to visit. In the room, Ernest Holmes found the man drunk and laying in bed. Although he was inebriated, the man was rather lucid and clear-thinking, recognizing he had a problem he didn't understand. He explained how he would go on these binges where he would go off to be alone and drink, sometimes for weeks at a time. When Ernest Holmes asked him what the man thought he could do for him, the man responded, "I really believe in your stuff, and I think I have some understanding of it. Surely there is some power that can help me." This man unknowingly was already beginning to practice the 12 steps of recovery. He recognized he had a problem, and he was powerless to overcome it, but he also believed there was a power greater than himself that could restore him to sanity. And I'm going to let Ernest Holmes tell the rest of the story because it's a little shocking. Perhaps you will be surprised at what we did next. We sent down to the bar for a bottle of whiskey. It is well known to those familiar with this subject, whether we call them psychologists or metaphysicians, that habits are not successfully treated through willpower alone. Something different from mere mental determination must tap into the emotional nature of an alcoholic or drug addict if he is to be free from the bonds which have clamped him into his mental prison. This is why we ordered the whiskey. I told him to drink all he wished. As a matter of fact, I placed a bottle with a glass of water at his bedside and left, telling him if this were not enough, I would secure more for him during the evening or night. But, he implored, aren't you going to help me? Is anything going to happen? What are you going to do anyway? Shall I wire to Los Angeles for my wife? No, I replied. Mr. Armour, his business partner, or actually one of his ministers, I believe, and I are occupying rooms close to you. We will get busy and lick this thing, and we are going to do it tonight. Ernest Holmes writes this, and I found this so amazing. I wanted to get away from him, away from seeing him in his defeated condition. I wished to get that mental image out of my mind that I might see him strong, self-reliant, poised in pure spirit, unshaken, unshakable. It was early in the evening. We had just had dinner. I returned to my room and said to Mr. Armour, too bad, we won't be going anywhere tonight. We have a job to do. Mr. B is across the hall, drunk. He wants to be healed, and we're going to do it right now. Perhaps you will be interested to know just how we went about our work. We made ourselves comfortable, relaxed. First one and then the other took up this thought for him. This man is conscious that he is pure spirit. He is poised and at peace with himself. There is nothing in him that craves alcohol. He is not seeking to escape from anything. He meets every issue of life without fear. There is nothing to run away from, nothing to avoid. At all times, he has a sense of well-being, of happiness, of security, and of self-expression. There is no memory of ever having received any pleasure or benefit from alcohol. There is no anticipation that he can ever receive pleasure or benefit from it again. The spirit within him is satisfied. It is radiant. It never seeks to escape from itself. It exists in its own sense of self-adequacy. It exists in joy, in freedom, and in peace. We did our work orally. First, Mr. Armour would work for 10 or 15 minutes, and I would take up the thought and continue, each speaking aloud. We worked for several hours until somehow, in a way which no one completely understands, hence which no one can perfectly explain, we both seemed to have a sense of release for our friend. We seemed to feel that what we had said about him was true, that there was no intoxicated man. There was only a glorious sense of divine sonship, free from fear, perfectly contented, happy and radiant, self-assured, united with the infinite, and one with complete satisfaction. Early the next morning, the phone rang, and a steady, cheerful voice said, "Can you come over to my room for a moment?" I was there almost immediately. He was relaxed, calm, and sober, as he had ever been in his life. His first remark was, "You will find the rest of that stuff in the closet." There it was, all but about 2 drinks that he had taken. He never took another drink. He never had the desire. You see, we were using the law of life for a definite purpose. There is no mystery about this. Anyone using the same method would have had the same result. Peace is the power at the heart of God. Now, I don't personally endorse or advocate giving a bottle of whiskey to an alcoholic. But clearly there was something in this man who wanted to be free from his affliction. Otherwise, he never would have summoned for help. Ernest Holmes could have spent hours with this man in his weakened state, logically talking to him about the reasons why he drank and the reasons why he should or shouldn't continue. Instead, he left the man to himself. Recognizing we all share one mind, he and his fellow minister treated for the man until they saw the essence of the truth, the essence and the truth of who this man was. Not an alcoholic craving alcohol, but a divine being not needing anything outside of himself at all. There is one power in the universe and we can use it. Much like there is an energy source that produces electricity, we can use that electricity for specific purposes. We can create light, power engines, perform medical procedures, clean teeth, cook food, heat shelters, refrigeration, my personal favorite, air conditioning. We can harness power and use it in these incredible devices that not only serve as phones, but GPS devices, maps, alarm clocks, flashlights, computers, online banking, play music, take pictures, all by harnessing the direct power for specific purposes.
Clockwork.
clockwork. Amazing.
Right on cue. How'd you arrange that?
Scott calling. We are to come to life, not dragging our burdens and woes to hurl into the face of the infinite, but gently we are to lay them down at the altar of our faith as we turn from the valley of our previous despair. As we make our ascent from appearance to reality, there is to be a song on our lips and joy in our heart. The light of the Spirit shines from the center of the soul. It is a beam of the eternal radiance. In the light, there is no darkness. In that light shall we see the light. The main impulsion of life is love. Plato said it is love, beauty, and wisdom. Life is more than law. It is also pure spirit. What we need, in addition to the knowledge that power flows through us and operates upon our thought with mathematical precision, is to realize that the greatest use of this power comes from more complete surrendering ourselves to its love. Remember that the power in you is you. It is itself as you. The more you live, the more completely it is expressed through you. The self-surrender necessary for a more complete outlet to this power is not a surrender of the individuality or of the true self. It is merely a surrender of the false self to the true self. At this point, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Your first step is to come to a more complete realization of who and what you are. Your next step is to enter into a more definite understanding of your relationship with the power. Your final step is to use the power for yourself and others. Start at once affirming your God-given dominion over anything which contradicts the nature of life. Rearrange your thought to conform to the belief that you are one with all the power and all the presence there is. It is flowing through you as health, happiness, and success. Bless everything you do. Take the restrictions off your efforts and announce them to be prosperous, good, and perfect. Know that the power is flowing through you creatively in the direction which your attention gives to it. Being right where you are, don't wait until you get an understanding as big as a house or as broad as an ocean or as deep as a well. And you can open your eyes now. If you have grasped the simple truth that a positive statement can neutralize a negative one, then begin by making a positive statement in simplicity and complete faith. Abandon yourself to a complete faith in the power. Don't argue with anyone about this. Don't listen to anything which contradicts it. This is keeping your eye single to the power. Remember, it is not some power, it is all power. It made everything. It made what we call big and little. It knows no difference between big and little. It does not know that $1 million is more than a nickel. It does not know that to heal cancer is any different from healing a wart on your finger. We are the ones who believe in limitation because we live in a sense of disunion with life. Enjoy, go within yourself to meet this life. Expect it to respond. Know that it is going to. Have no anxiety. Relax and trust. Believe. Don't deny it. Begin with whatever affirmative and constructive thinking you have and build on that. Refuse to dwell in the darkness of unbelief. Refuse to be overcome by negative suggestions. Boldly step through the place of doubt and plant your feet on the solid rock of faith. Peace is the power at the heart of God. And so it is.
So it is.